Welcome to the Hook and Reel Kayak Fishing Show, brought to you by Classic City Kayak Anglers and Coyote Outfitters in Watkinsville, Georgia, with your hosts, Freddie Garza and David Smith.
Welcome back to the Hook and Reel Kayak Fishing Show, your home for all things kayak fishing in the state of Georgia. Today we're going to update you guys on the Georgia High School Kayak Fishing State Championship and the Georgia Bass Nation Kayak Series State Championship. Also, please stick around for our interview with Mr. John Hummel, talking about Georgia kayak fishing and some of the history of Georgia kayak fishing and vision of where things are going in the future. So please stick around for our interview with John Hummel. With that, Freddie, get us started on the state championship news.
Sure. Georgia High School Kayak Fishing Association. So we are within a couple of weeks of our state championship that we're going to be hosting in conjunction with Southeastern Youth Kayakers. And we're super excited about that event. Registration is now open, so head on over to PayPal. All the information for the tournament we'll have updated this week on the Facebook page. So, you'll find all the latest information for that tournament. We're excited about it. We've got a lot of great prizes we're looking to give away for this tournament and crowning our first high school state champion. So, exciting things for that weekend. Following weekend, we will have our Georgia Bass Nation State Championship. So we're about to run into quite a busy time for the state of Georgia. Kind of going back, David, with a little bit. We've got state championship, the Georgia State Championship that'll be happening on October 17th as well. That'll be the same day that we'll be out there with the high schoolers. And then that following weekend, October 24th. Is going to be our Georgia Bass Nation State Championship. So a lot of things going on to finish out the month of October, but super excited for Georgia kayak fishing. So stay tuned. We'll have some updates and results hopefully there toward the end of the month, and get you guys updated on what happened and how everybody finished out. So that's all we had.
And if you're not registered yet, registration is open. Please get registered. And if you have any questions about registration, reach out to Freddie or myself, and we'll try to get things cleared up if there's any questions remaining on about how to get registered for the Bass Nation State Championship.
Absolutely.
So, well, guys, with that, we're going to jump into our interview now with Mr. John Hummel. So, John, thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show with us. And, guys, we hope you enjoyed this interview.
Hey, guys, thanks for being with us tonight. Our guest tonight is Mr. John Hummel. Most of you guys are familiar with John. He's a fixture in the Georgia kayak community, tournament director of Peach State Kayaks, and very active in the Georgia kayak community. So with that, John, welcome aboard. And if you would, just give us a little bit about John Hummel.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Freddie, guys. Appreciate you guys having me on here. David, you kind of nailed it. I am the tournament director for Peach State. I'm one of the co-founders along with Jim Ware back in 2016. I am still one of the board members. Also a national team for Jackson Kayak and pro staff for Werner Paddles. That's about me on the water.
Good deal. Well, John, tell us a little bit about how long have you been in the kayak world? When did you get started, and kind of what brought you into wanting to do all of this? Because I know tournament directing is it's one of those positions that easily gets overlooked as far as being grateful for. But tell us a little bit about how you got started and how you ended up where you are today.
Whew, that's kind of a long story. I've been at this a bit now. I got into kayak fishing back in 2013. Like a lot of guys here, bank access is kind of limited in Georgia, particularly on your bigger lakes. There's plenty of spots you can get in, but to really get to the fish, you need to be able to get onto the water in a lot of places here in Georgia. And I got frustrated with bank fishing, was looking at other options. John Boat living in Atlanta really wasn't a good play for me. And I was considering a canoe. And then I came across a guy at the time. He went by Basser Drew on a lot of social media, the old GKF forums, places like that, GON, Drew Gregory.
Okay.
And I found kayak fishing, and I was like, oh, this kind of sounds like something I want to do. I wanted to kind of get on the rivers here in the state. Kayak seemed much lighter to deal with than a canoe for one person by himself. Car topping from the city. And I got myself an old native redfish, 12-foot kayak. It was a barge. paddled straight as an arrow. Just you weren't going to get there fast.
Right.
But it was a good boat. I caught some good fish in that boat. And I paddled that for about a year and a half. And then I moved to a Jackson Coosa, which I've been in Jackson since. But during that time, when I got involved in the kayak fishing community, there weren't a whole lot of clubs going on. There was Georgia Kayak Fishing that did some get-togethers and some camping paddles. There was a club that's no longer with us now, SKA SCA Southern Kayak Anglers, and they were kind of a regional club based out of the metro Atlanta area, but they fished events from North Carolina to Alabama. Some of the guys that you see fishing on the regional and national level now, Drew Gregory, Tim Perkins, Rock Lee, these guys actually came up from SCA before I was even involved in the community. And I got a chance to fish with them probably late 2014 for the first time. It was a co-event up on Chickamauga with some of the Tennessee clubs. And that was really my first introduction to kayak tournament fishing. And I really liked it. And at the time, like I said, there was only a couple clubs. Real Crazy was just coming onto the scene. There was really a gap in a lot of the state to kind of get out and fish because really only had a couple of options and they were really spread out. So I got involved with Georgia Kayak Fishing. We did some events with them. And then Jim Ware and I actually left Georgia Kayak Fishing in 2016 and founded Peach State. And did a couple years with Jim running Peach State. Grateful for all of his help getting the club founded and getting things going first few years. And the last couple, I've been fortunate enough to have a board to really help me because as we've grown, as you guys know, the responsibility and the effort grows exponentially as you keep adding people.
Right.
A lot more time off the water than people realize. And I'm really grateful for the guys I have on the board this year that have helped me out and kind of taken some of that load off my shoulders.
Right. Well, good deal. Yeah, I know it's tough. Dave and I keep joking about when the next time we'll actually be able to get out on the water and do some fishing will be. But it's something. It's a job. It's work. But we enjoy it as well. To be able to produce events for these guys. But you mentioned the early start. So we had kind of an explosion in Georgia, and me being with Classic City, being part of that explosion in what was it? I guess the end of 2017, starting 2018. Tell us a little bit about what you see now. I mean, what are your thoughts now with the growth that we've seen, and just the scene in general? I mean, what are your thoughts? How do you see? Are there things that you see we may be able to do better? Are there things that we need to keep in line? I mean, what's your overall thoughts on the way the community stands now?
That's some great questions, Freddie. The community is stronger than it's ever been. The collaboration between clubs, between anglers across the state is amazing. Guys from Augusta can ask a question about fishing somewhere in West Georgia, and they'll get an honest answer from somebody who knows the water, and vice versa. Somebody wants to go out and fish Savannah, they can post up and they'll get a good answer on how to fish the Savannah River. So that scene in terms of the cooperation and the collaboration is really strong. Overall, there's an amazing presence in the West Point area and then above I-20.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of area to grow below 20/16. I know there's a lot of open space down there, but that's an area that I personally would love to see us get some more clubs. I think it's an area we can get some people involved in the Albany, Valdosta area, getting down towards Brunswick. There's some good fishing inland there. I'd love to see some growth down in that area.
Right.
And that's going to just take people getting down there and hosting events. And it's hard. I know that's far for all of us.
Right.
But that's an area I'd love to see us grow, and an area that I think is prime for growth. I think we've done a good job of covering the northern third of the state. Even in the central part, the Macon area. Macon could support a good fishery and a good club between Toby, Juliet, the Okmulgee in there. Got some good stuff going on. They could do it, and I'd love to see that growth. A lot of guys kayak fish out of Warner Robins.
Right.
That's right there. easily could get a good club going down in that area, and I hope somebody would step up and do that here in the near future.
Right. No, I agree with you, John. It's one of those things, and it's funny you mentioned that. David and I just today at the shop, we had he had printed out a map of Georgia, and we kind of looked at it, and we were trying to figure out, we were looking at the different corridors, the different highways that stretch across Georgia, and it's very interesting. You're right. There's so much kind of empty space there once we get, just south of Atlanta. But I do think that, there's definitely people down there with interest. I think it's just a matter of trying to create something that's more convenient for them, and I'd love to see that happen. Especially with the high school, that's one of the areas we're starting to get some interest in down south. But it's just logistically difficult for us to try to make something happen down there. But I'd love for growth to happen for sure. So maybe somebody watching can step up and take the lead on that and get something going down south. That'd be great. I know.
Love to see that. Love to see it.
So, well, good deal. Well, as far as Peach State, so tell us a little bit about kind of how you go about putting together your schedule for a year. I mean, you guys are more, I've always looked at Peach State as kind of all encompassing. You guys are going to travel and do your best. And as a matter of fact, last year, I believe y'all were down south. So, tell us a little bit about how, you go about putting together your schedule and, what type of conveniences you try to create for, anybody interested in fishing a Peach State event.
So I look at a couple different things when I'm putting together the schedule. And the first thing I do is I figure out my dates. And I do that based on the lunar cycle. I want to be fishing, if possible, on the new moon or like a day before. I prefer to have our event scheduled several days before, but a day after is certainly better than 5 days before, but I'm always planning around that new moon cycle. That's what I'm looking for. So we just actually released our dates yesterday, and two of our events are actually going to be on the new moon, and 2 of them are a day before. So that gives guys a really good chance. The fish are active. They don't have a whole lot of lunar light coming down on the water. So they feed a lot more just in general, and they get really active. The other thing we look at is we try and put our guys on bodies of water that we know are going to produce or have the potential to produce big fish, big stringers at that time of year. For example, we go down to Seminole in February. We could do that time of year. Going down in July or August would be really difficult on our anglers. It's hot, it's muggy, it's really kind of just stale in terms of like very little airflow. So we try and get them down there when those fish are pre-spawn. They're coming up into the flats, they're coming up shallow, hopefully moving off the main lake into the channels and into the riverbeds to start spawning, and hopefully they can get on some big fish. So that's kind of what we look for the first 3 to 4 events of the year. In the heat of the summer, obviously everyone wants to be off of flat water. So we've kind of gotten into this Flint, Okmulgee, Etowah kind of cycle the last couple 3 years. Those may change dates or months in and out, but those are typically in our roster of events in the June, July, August timeframe. In years past, we've always ended in August. This year, a postponement of Rocky pushed us into September. That's something we'll probably consider doing going in the future, is going into September. There's still some really great fishing that time of year. The bigger conflict, of course, is you get into college football season, and here in the South, that's a big thing.
So trying to battle that makes it hard. Absolutely.
So,
well, good deal. Well, sticking with the topic of Peach State, your affiliation. So you guys are affiliated with KBF and now Georgia Bass Nation. So tell us a little bit about your thoughts, and we'll start with KBF. What offers are out there for the anglers that come and fish your events? I mean, how, as far as KBF is concerned, what possibilities are there for KBF through your club?
So we're a KBF partner club. With that, based on the attendance of our event, a set number of members, a set number of anglers, depending on their finish, can qualify for the KBF National Championship in 2021. They need to be a KBF member the Friday before the event. But with where the KBF numbers are this year, we're putting 2 to 4 anglers forward each event for KBF. for next year.
Good deal. So now with regards to bass, what are your thoughts on them entering the kayak scene, and what are your thoughts on what you've seen from them, what they produce with the nationals, and now hopefully the state championship for bass in Georgia?
Excited to have bass get on the scene. Of course, somebody who comes behind the kayak fishing community with that level of clout is definitely a welcome addition. This has obviously been a tough year for anybody to get into the tournament scene, running a massive trail. And I know we've all had our difficulties this year. So
Right.
I'm really looking forward to the state championship this year and to next year's national championship and seeing what hopefully a COVID-free 2021 brings in terms of a trail for bass that we can get out and fish with a little more reliability. Fortunately, that kind of got boondoggled this year, but looking forward to that next year.
Yeah. Yeah, next year, I think bass is super excited in what they've seen so far. I think it'll just be the culmination of what we can all produce as a community, to really show them the interest is there from bass. And I think, they're hoping to see the interest back from the anglers. So, hopefully with what we do in our given states, I know Alabama just had their state championship and they had a decent turnout, COVID considered. Tennessee is up and Georgia is up. So I'll be excited to see, what those produce, and, really excited to see what kind of happens moving into next year when we have an actual trail and state championship. But I have to ask this question, John, because, a lot of people know that I am involved in the last few interviews. I've kind of put people on the hot seat. Will you be fishing this Georgia Bass Nation State Championship in October?
That is currently my plan.
Okay. We're good.
No. Sinclair in October can be a really good fishery. We actually had the first club championship there back in 2016. So I fished at that time of year. It can also be tough. I think the whole weekend I caught 7 fish on 7 different techniques in 7 different areas. A lot of guys had a hard time patterning fish, but they weren't really chasing the shad yet. It was still a little warm, so hopefully we get a little cooler fall and they're chasing the shad, and top water should be insane if that's the case.
Right. Well, good deal.
So,
well, you mentioned it. You mentioned club championship and state championship. I always have a hard time kind of describing to people kind of how we're set up, but tell us a little bit about the way that the Georgia State Championship is set up. How do you qualify? I know Classic City obviously is a part of that as well, and we look forward to rostering a few to join that tournament as well. But how does one qualify for the Georgia State Championship?
So the way to qualify for the Kayak Club Championship, your I'm sorry.
Hello,
Freddie.
did we lose? Okay, you're back now.
You guys got me still?
Yeah. Uh-oh.
Yeah. So I was saying that right now is through your local clubs. There are participating clubs here in Georgia, Real Crazy, Peach State, Chattahoochee Kayak Anglers, East Central, Georgia Kayak Fishing League, and Classic City. Each club is allocated a set number of spots. So for the 4 clubs that have been participating for several years now, each club gets their top 8 anglers, 1 wild card that they can distribute as they see fit, and then a tournament director. Classic City and Georgia Kayak Fishing League are new this year. As new clubs, we don't want to burden a new club with trying to fill 10 roster spots. That can be a lot. So you guys each have 5 spots, and I believe you have your choice of doing top 4 in TD or top 3 wild card in TD this year.
Right.
So if we have a full field, we'll be at 50 for the first time. The past 4 years have been 40 anglers. So we're looking forward to seeing the growth. It is a 2-day event, which we really find is great because it gets everybody to stay over Saturday night. We've had times where we'll have 30 anglers in a Mexican restaurant having dinner, talking trash across tables on Saturday night.
Right.
That's been kind of fun. The traditional setup is 1 river day, 1 lake day. We recognize that anglers have strengths. Obviously, there are some really well-rounded anglers in the state who are good on both flat and moving water. So they have a little bit, maybe not an advantage, but they're definitely in a good spot for it. I like fishing moving water more than I like fishing flat water. So, that's typically my better performance from what I've seen in these events.
Right.
My flat water has not been the best, but hopefully this year, Clarksville and the Savannah won't kick my butt too hard. And then what we do is we first year we kind of everybody got involved and everybody tried to take a hand in helping run it, and it was just a lot for everyone to try and source additional stuff. Everybody works hard to get partners for their club, and then to have to pile that on to everybody else to bring stuff to the table for the state championship was a big ask. So what we started doing was rotating that through the clubs. So basically one club every 4 years. It will start being every 6 years starting next year, would have the responsibility of being the host club and kind of shouldering that load once every 6 years, as opposed to trying to figure out how to best split it up among 6 or 7, 8, hopefully in the future, clubs. It's a lot easier, I think, to do it that way. And it seems to have worked so far. And the great part about it is that the people who don't necessarily have the responsibility for shouldering the load at that event still step up and help out.
Right.
We, across the club, it doesn't matter. Guys step up and they help out. And that's the great part about it.
Right.
Is that everyone's willing to chip in and kind of make the event a success.
Good. Now again, we're looking forward to rostering it, and that's something that we're definitely, this year being our first year, we've learned some things that we can do better moving into next year. And I think one of the things we definitely want to get out there as far as information is what that process looks like, because basically it sounds like the qualifying process is kind of determined by each club. So however they want to utilize whether it's their point system or however they want to allot those 5, it's kind of up to the individual club to kind of get that information out there to an angler that is looking to see how to qualify through their club.
Correct. So we take, for us, we base your Angler of the Year finish on your best 5 events.
Right.
And we have a weighted point scale based on your finish, top 10, and then outside of top 10. So our anglers, their AOY stringer is the best 5 events, and that's determines their placings at the end of the season. And then our top 8 are how they qualify. Other clubs will use more of either a length-based system, top 5 events by length. There's a whole different host of options that clubs have available to them and how they determine their AOY. And like you said, that does leave it up to them to kind of figure out how they determine their final standings and which anglers advance.
Good deal. Sounds good. That, like I said, that's one thing, John, I know we'll work harder on next year in getting that information, because that's the one thing, and David and I kind of putting on this show that we're starting to realize as we talk to people, kind of the confusion that has been created with so many clubs, not intentionally. It's just when somebody comes and does a search for Georgia kayak fishing, they're kind of overwhelmed with information, and to see the different pages and us kind of operate in ways that works for our region. I think it causes some confusion to new guys that are looking to jump into our world, and they're like, their head's spinning trying to figure it out. And we've had some other larger organizations, I won't name names, but that have kind of caused a lot of confusion within our community. And that's something that we're hoping with the Hook and Reel to kind of be a one-stop shop of information, for every club. So if there's ever anything that you hear us say or anything that we post, please let us know, because we want to try to eliminate any type of confusion for everyone across the board. So
awesome. A lot of the information is out there for anglers. It's more of you need to go find it.
Right. And that's been, the difficulties, but
the bigger problem, I think, though, is that, is that if you don't know the information is out there yet, then you don't know to go look for it. And I think that's been a bigger issue. Like, there's been some bigger national events that have been announced, and I haven't seen anything about them until 4 days before the event. And it's like, I would have fished it, but now I don't. It's kind of quick planning to make a move and travel.
Right.
So it's, I think, better communication from the nationals, from the clubs, locals, everything just across the board is going to just help everybody.
Right. No, I agree. And that one of the places that I've noticed, a lot of the confusion was with, with bass. I'll be honest that just to get the information, the correct information, and before I put it out there, I didn't want to cause confusion by jumping the gun and having a half answer, throwing it out on the Facebook page, and then everybody kind of going off of that answer, and then all of a sudden having to turn around a few days later and say, well, pump the brakes, I was incorrect in that, we need to change it. So it has been, and that has caused some frustration as well. I've heard people talk about how there's a lack of information. Well, it's been difficult to kind of weave into their system, so to speak, because I think there's a lot of questions and a lot of things that need to be answered, but it's all in a good way, and we'll get through it. It's just a matter of taking the time to get it done right. But Bass is excited, I'm excited. I think from what I've noticed in the community, they're excited as well. But we have so much going on, and it's amazing to talk to people from other states as well, and they look at our numbers as a whole. We don't get them as a whole very often, but when we do, people have taken notice, and they're interested in the state of Georgia. So I'm really interested to see where we'll be in the next 3 years, especially as we all join up and do a lot of joint events and things like that to really produce for the angler. Because at the end of the day, I think that's what's important, is producing a solid event that's going to have a good payout, and still keeping the grassroots mentality, because I think that's very important, because not everybody wants to fish bass or the nationals, and be able to produce a solid trail on the grassroots level is still very important to me. And I know yourself and quite a few others in the state too. So.
Yep, I totally agree. We offer the KBF, the bass, because our anglers want them,
Right.
quite frankly. And I don't mean that in a bad way to talk bad about either organization. It's that we want to offer people as much as we can to get them involved with us in the way that gets them involved with us. So some of our people fish with us because they want to qualify for bass or they want to qualify for KBF. So we offer that. And that if that gets them out in the water with us, awesome. We got a lot of guys that, like you said, don't care to qualify for either one. And those guys are just as welcome. And we are excited to have them at our events too. Without them, without those guys, we wouldn't be in the position to offer the KBF and the bass affiliations. So,
Right.
We welcome everybody, and we're just glad to get on the water. Hopefully people keep liking what we're doing.
Right. Well, good. It seems like they do. Well, a little bit more about yourself. You mentioned you've been on with the Jackson team. Tell us a little bit with, how has this situation with COVID and everything affected, or has it affected anything with the team, or, how are you guys doing? How long have you been with them? And, tell us a little bit more about Jackson.
Yeah. So I got on with Jackson. This was, I guess, September or so of 17. 16. Yeah. Sorry. So I spent 2 years on the regional team, and the last 2 years I've been on the national team for Jackson. COVID has hit Jackson like every other manufacturer: shutdowns, supply issues, out of stocks on boats. I don't think that's anything that people don't know in the community. I see boats behind you guys, and you guys are in a good shape compared to what I've heard from other dealers. So that's a good spot to be in for you guys.
Let me tell you, it's been a rarity, John, with everything that David gets in the shop. Literally, there's a waiting list for those boats as they drop. So and you're right. It's not, anything that no one knows, because it's across the board. Everybody, as far as manufacturing, supply, is just really struggling right now. It's unfortunate and fortunate all in the same time. So if you can get them, great. If you can't, then you just have to be patient right now with the manufacturers, because they can't control it. So
nope, it's out of their hands.
It is.
But I've been fortunate to be with Jackson. The team at Jackson is like an extended family. I know that if I want to go fishing anywhere in the country or quite a few places around the world, I got Jackson teammates who will gladly get me out on the water. I was traveling for work last summer and posted that I was in Pittsburgh, and one of my teammates reached out and made it very hard for me to try and stay and do my job, because he was really trying to get me on some big smallies out there in Pittsburgh. And I was really trying to find a way to get out of working, but I had to pass. But that's the kind of people that I'm fortunate enough to be associated with at Jackson. Just really good people who really care about the industry, and people who do a variety of different things within it. We've got some really amazing tournament anglers at Jackson. We've got some great people who produce content between video and Instagram, some awesome writers, some people who do some amazing exploration fishing out there, people like Jim Salmons with the Kayak Fishing Show who just go catch amazing saltwater beasts most of the time when he's out there. And just the ability to learn from these people too at the same time, and to have that knowledge base I can tap has been just a really great thing for me, and I'm really fortunate.
Well, good. Yeah, they seem very supportive of our community too, so it's very interesting to hear about that. Well, good deal. So as far as, you know, going back to Georgia and our community, you know, what do you feel that we, you know, obviously myself being a tournament director, I mean, what do you see would be best to help, you know, the new angler? We've got, it seems like we're seeing a lot of new anglers coming onto the scene. You know, what would you like to see if there was one thing that you would like to see as far as uniformity across the board in clubs, to allow for a better situation and somebody finding us all, and being able to go to our Facebook page and see some sort of consistency? If there were one thing that you could suggest, what would that be?
That's an excellent question. I don't know that I have anything that jumps to mind offhand. I think what we have going on here, and that each club has a great deal of autonomy in how they run things. As spread out as we are and as regional as we are, I think that's a really good thing. I don't know that we need to necessarily have anything standardized across the clubs. That's a bigger discussion for forming maybe a statewide organization at some point with regionals. But that's a whole different discussion. I don't know that's where the state needs to go. That just becomes an awful lot of administrative work for one or more people to deal with. I think the key that every club should be stressing is that everybody's welcome, regardless of skill level. And I need to do a better job of that with Peach State, just encouraging the new anglers to get out. And, you know, my first event went awful. I drove to Chickamauga. I didn't even think about the time zone change. So it was 5:30 in the morning. It was dark. I didn't bring a headlamp. So I was trying to rig out my kayak with my iPhone in one hand and the other hand trying to do all the other stuff. I paddled out into Dallas Bay on Chickamauga and couldn't find my identifier. I thought I left it at the car, paddled back across the bay, got back to the car, couldn't find it, realized it was in my pants pocket. I started paddling back out, and then somewhere across the bay, I watched it fall out of my pocket overboard and sink into the bay. And it was about 7 o'clock in the morning, and I fished with no chance of scoring anything the rest of the day. So you can have an awful experience in tournament fishing your first time and still get hooked by it and still want to get back out and fish. And I think we need to just encourage anybody, like, doesn't matter your skill level, come out, fish, come meet some people. Maybe you're going to meet somebody that lives close to you that wants to get out and fish. Maybe you have some questions. You know, the great part about a lot of people in this community that I found, as opposed to other types of bass fishing communities, is the willingness to help anglers and answer questions. Some guys will still be like, yeah, I caught it in the lake. Caught it on a hook. And that's cool. I respect that. But a lot of guys out there are going to be like, yeah, man, they were on points and I was throwing this. You know, rising tide, man. Like, the more people we get out and fish, the better the event's going to be.
No, I can definitely agree with that. And that's one thing that, you know, is very important. David and I have talked about that too, with, you know, kind of being in the sport for so long, you kind of lose, you know, you lose focus of what it's like to be someone who is trying to figure it out, you know. And I think that's a great point. And I would like to see, you know, a lot of that, a lot more of that throughout the clubs. And I think the clubs are very open and willing to accept new anglers, you know, and promotion of that, you know, that's one thing that we've always tried. We can definitely do better as Classic City in helping promote other clubs as well. But to do so in a manner that really makes it feel inviting to the new guy. Because I think, you know, it can be intimidating even at the grassroots level, not showing up to a tournament. And a decent sized tournament for us is typically 20, 30 people, and that can be a huge intimidator for somebody who's never fished a tournament. But if they knew, I think, ahead of time that it's going to be okay, because those 30 guys are probably they'll be your best friends in the next 2 weeks, as long as you continue to get to know them. So I think our community is always open and so willing to learn, or to teach. I think you will get those guys that are going to say exactly what you said. It's like, I caught it in the water, but they'll say it in such a way that it's not, it's not offensive. It's just, hey, I can show you some things, but I'm not going to show you everything of what we do. So we've got a lot of those guys, and it's a great community. So I think to promote that is huge for all of us across the state, for sure.
Good. Yeah, agree.
Yeah. Well, David, did you have anything for John? I'm sorry if I'm taking up everything. I always tend to just take over.
No, I mean, John, I'm glad you mentioned that about excuse me, I'm glad you mentioned that about Jackson, and the problem with inventory and things like that. As a shop owner, man, I deal with that every day. And I know, having said that, and this is no reflection on Jackson whatsoever, I want to be sure I'm clarifying myself, because I don't mean that, because I understand where they're at. And I know you had some issues with your angle of the year stuff, and I'm not necessarily want to go down that path. But, well, one thing I do want to talk about a little bit is the sponsors and the partners. And first of all, first part of this is give you an opportunity to give a pretty shameless plug here for the sponsors and partners of Peach State, because I like for people to know the companies that work with our local anglers and work with our tournament directors and trying to help grow the community. So tell us about your sponsors. And then after that, Freddie and I talked a good bit about that today ourselves, about, without giving proprietary information or anything, tell us a little bit about how you go about that with Peach State, bringing people on board and looking for sponsors and things like that.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to thank our 2020 partners. First of all, I do want to thank New Canoe and Westbrook Supply. As everybody knows, we unfortunately, due to COVID supply issues, we're not able to get the boat that we were supposed to get this year. And Fletch and Scott at Westbrook and Everett with New Canoe really stepped up for us, really helped out, are making sure that 7 events in, our Angler of the Year is going to be taken care of after next month's King of the Rock event with a New Canoe Flint. It will be in the Tundra color, so if you haven't seen it yet, go check it out on their website. We'll hopefully have that for the winter at the Rock. If not, it'll be in right behind that, and they can pick it up at Westbrook. We are fortunate enough this year to also have partners. NRS Fishing has given us a Chinook vest and a co-pilot knife going as part of our Angler of the Year prize. We've had Nichols Lures for the first time this year, who have donated a $25 gift certificate for each one of our events, as well as a $100 gift certificate to go to our Angler of the Year. Fish Head Spin has been the partner of our Fish Head closest to the spin contest this year, where we pick a random length basically out of a hat, and the angler that either gets that number first or gets closest to it if no one hits it gets a $25 gift certificate to the Fish Head website. They're also kicking $100 towards our Angler of the Year prize. Birch's Tackle has been a partner for us the last couple of years, so anybody who shops their website, we have a discount code for them for their tackle. Kayak Cushion is donated a kayak cushion that I have here for a prize for this year. What else we have? We have a fishing rod coming. It was supposed to be iRod. That didn't quite work out. I haven't announced where we're getting backfilled yet, but that is being taken care of. So we do have a rod we're giving away this year. RoboHawk has been a phenomenal first year partner for us this year. Sent down a bunch of their different gear tethers that we've been able to give away at our events this year. So we're really fortunate to have such a great diversity of partners this year between kayak manufacturers, PFD manufacturers, tackle shops, lure companies. So that's been really great that we've had such great support from the community. Also, Speed Pro Printing in Alpharetta was kind enough to actually print and donate the giant prize checks with our logo on it. So thank you to them as well for helping us out. And how I go about finding partners, I've been fortunate enough to have a few of these now for a couple years. We did lose a couple this year to COVID or merger that are no longer in business, but they were good longtime partners for us in Hook One and Moccasin Lures. Appreciate all the support they've given us over the years. Sorry to see them both go the way they've gone, but for Moccasin, it's a good thing. They're part of Cumberland Pro now, so that's a positive on both sides of that. As far as approaching new potential partners, being in the industry now about 7.5 years, been fortunate enough to make a lot of connections. This year, I actually put together a pitch deck about Peach State. I pulled a lot of our metrics from Facebook, our engagement, our likes, our reactions, our comments, our growth. Pulled some numbers of how our event growth has gone the last couple of years. I put that together into a PowerPoint presentation with some pictures from different events we had. And that's actually what I used this year to send out. We really went a long way in helping us kind of create something different that differentiates Peach State. The other thing that I tell anybody at a club level that's looking to increase their partnership is that we don't like the term sponsor at Peach State. We like the term partner. If you sponsor us, you're giving us something without us having to really do anything in return other than say thank you very much. As a partner, we want to work to promote those that choose to partner with us so that they feel they're getting a good return on their decision to partner with us, and that they're going to choose to partner with us in the future because they know we're going to commit to driving recognition of their brand, driving people to their website, hopefully driving sales. And the codes we get are great. A lot of our anglers use our products. I heard from several of our partners this year thanking us for the volume that drove to their website. So that's always a great feedback that we're doing good things at Peach State. So that's kind of hodgepodge all over the place there a little bit in the way I described it, but that's kind of how we approach things. We want to have partners, and we want to just grow the community.
Right. No, that's great information, John. And that's something that, with myself and talking to a lot of these, potential partners as well. That's something I like to use as well, because for me, you nailed it. A sponsorship is just that. They're going to give you the product and not expect anything in return. And that's great for whatever one event, or, if that's what you're looking to do. But to build a true partnership, it takes work from, I believe, just you being the contact and myself being the contact, but it goes further. It's building that culture within the club as well. And, that's why I'd like to talk about this, because I'd like to give some people, especially our anglers, some insight on what goes on behind the scenes. Because I think, sometimes it's easily overlooked. They're more interested in the actual event, which, obviously that's what we do, and that's why we do it, so that they are interested in that event. But there's so much more behind the scenes that goes on that I think, goes underappreciated. And to me, I think it would be appreciated if the information were out there. And that's, something that we're working hard to get out there for both, someone such as myself or yourself, but the potential partners out there as well. Because that's been the biggest conversation that I've had in the last couple of years with potential partners. And that is, the lack of partnership. It's like, we've been here, we've done this, we haven't gotten the results that we expected for one reason or another. And I think a lot of that is just, the lack of setting the expectation from, whatever club or organization that they choose to partner with. And, that's something that we're working on from my perspective. But again, it's bigger than just me. It's being able to produce that culture, so to speak, within Classic City, of understanding that, hey, these guys are supporting us and partnering with us. And, our job is merely to help them. If we enjoy the product, then we need to make it known and drive people to their sites. Because at the end of the day, that partnership is it's a business deal. And, it can work great if the partnership's working great, or it can not if it's not being, if expectations aren't being achieved. So.
No, I 100% agree. And in essence, your club becomes somewhat an extension of their marketing efforts,
Right.
And you need to deliver on that. When I first got into this kayak fishing community, you could pretty much call up a manufacturer and get something donated like that for an event, because there wasn't a whole lot of clubs, there weren't a whole lot of things going on, and everybody wanted to be involved. And then 3 years ago or so, the market took a big swing the other way, because there were so many clubs popping up. Just out of the blue, that were contacting manufacturers asking for product, that the whole market contracted, and it was really hard to get support for a couple of years. And that faucet's kind of opened up, and it's gone from a drip to a little bit more of a pour.
Right.
But like you're saying, it's the ones who choose to be a good partner to the manufacturers, that choose to partner with them, that are going to continue to get the support from the manufacturers.
Right.
The ones that do look at it as just, thank you for the product, awesome, we'll call you next October when we're talking about the next year.
Right.
There's plenty of those out there. Then those clubs aren't going to continue to get product, unfortunately, because they're not going to do what's best for the manufacturer. And that's what it's about. It's
Right.
about doing what's best for those who are supporting you.
Right. It is. Well, I've got one question, going back to Peach State, and this is always popping into my mind with the way that our community is, has been set up from the very beginning to what we're probably looking at 5 years down the road. So if you were to give a snapshot of down the road, and I always, I'm curious to know everybody's opinion on this particular question, just because I'm curious. But so, right now, most clubs are sitting here, we've got 100% payouts. Do you feel, with Peach State and the way that you've set it up, do you feel, again, this is kind of hypothetical, but I just want to know kind of your insight on it. I'm not saying that you would ever decide this at any point, but just curious to know what your thoughts are on it. And that's entry fees. You're seeing a lot in our community with 100% payouts. And, I'm from Texas as well, and it's the same thing in Texas. But what I've noticed in some clubs in Texas, they've changed that mentality to hold back percentages for the greater good of the club. And what you're seeing in that, and what I've seen in that, is that those clubs who do that, there's some successes. Obviously, there's some failures too, because I know some clubs that just kind of, I think they do it more as a way to pay their TDs and whatnot for their efforts. But you see that lack in what goes back to the club versus the ones who put, okay, I'm going to take 5% of every entry, put it into the club, and then you start to see an enormous amount of promotion, product, prizes, everything just is a plus. But, they're doing that by taking and holding back percentages. Do you feel like at some point that's something that we'll see as a norm, or do you feel like it's 100% or no way at all?
That's an excellent question. We've kind of been talking about that a little bit at Peach State this year, as we look at next year, just in terms of, do we want to hold a little back, or add a little bit to each entry that would go to an Angler of the Year pot?
Right.
Be nothing to pay the TDs out. We don't, I've never made a dime on this. Quite frankly, most years I go out of pocket,
Right.
$50 to $75 of my own money. This year was really tough because I had to mail a bunch of prizes out due to COVID. So there was a little more of a spend than I normally have. I pay a lot of the top off fees if somebody enters late, and they pay the PayPal with a fee, and it's Friday night at 7:00 and I can't get a hold of somebody. I just top that off at $1.17, but that adds up over the course of time.
Absolutely.
I got no interest in getting money back at this point. It is what it is. I don't do it for the money. I do it for the love of the sport.
Right.
If we do anything, it would strictly be to reinvest, like I said, in an Angler of the Year pot. And I think that's partially learning from this year, in which we were faced with a situation where our Angler of the Year prize pool got cut quickly. It's recovered again thanks to New Canoe and Westbrook. But just in general, having a little extra cash for that winter is always a nice thing too.
Right.
But I think that'd be the only thing we'd look at doing. And that would be relative to if we were to maybe incorporate Tourney X next year, and therefore our fees would go up as it was. So there's a couple different things we're looking at, but Right now, the plan is to stay at 100% payout
Right.
for what we're doing. Guys know that when they come in, particularly because we don't charge a club fee, and some guys may only fish 1 or 2 events, they know that their $50 is going $10 to Big Bass and $40 to the pot, and they got a chance of taking that all home that day. Or not that half that's going, somewhere else, or some percentage of it. So.
Right. Well, good. Well, I appreciate you answering that. That's, kind of my mentality of it as well. I think we'll have to see, but I think, looking down the road, there are other opportunities I see in being able to do that, but solely to put back into the club, like you said, either, upping the AOI pot or reinvesting it back into something that goes back to the anglers. But it can get challenging at times. And, again, you brought up some good points that I think some people may overlook as far as, what goes on behind the scenes with tournament directors and, things like that. So I've been in the same boat. You're looking at it Friday evening, Saturday morning, you got to have everything in a row, and you're not able to get, and you're seeing all these people who didn't use friends and family, and you're getting dinged with small costs, and it adds up, something that I've never minded doing or taking care of. But, it's just something that I like to at least let people know that this goes on, guys. It's not all just 100% non-investment and everything's free and we're able to make things happen, because sometimes it costs us. But, again, throwing it out there for people to realize that things happen.
And there's costs that don't really get put into the column. In that, the first time we did a Seminole event, I drove down to Seminole, not to pre-fish, but just to scout things out and figure out where things were and where we could draw things off. That was a day of my time as a tank of gas. That's me. It's on me. That doesn't come out of the tournament pool. It doesn't come out of anything that the club members pay to get into an event. That's just me doing what I need to do to be sure that we have a good event for people.
Right.
That's just part of the love of the sport, unfortunately, or fortunately. I'm not quite sure which one, but.
Right. I hear you 100%. Well, John, we definitely appreciate you coming on the show and answering some questions, and would look forward to having you on again. Again, this is something that we're hoping to be informative to new anglers and anglers who've been around. Diving into some different areas and just putting that information out there. So that's kind of our goal with the Hook and Reel, and we're looking forward to building it. So we'd ask that, if you get an opportunity and you see an episode, please help us share it up. We'd love to get the information out there because, again, we want to help you, Peach State, and every club in the state of Georgia. So if there's ever anything that we can do for you guys, please let us know.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for having me on. Let me talk about Peach State and our wonderful partners and Jackson and Werner. Really good time talking with you guys. I'm looking forward to getting fishing with you guys again soon.
Definitely. Look forward to it, John. We appreciate it again.
Thanks, John. Thanks for being on with us.
My pleasure, guys. Looking forward to it.
All right.
Thanks, John, for that great interview. We appreciate you being on the show. We thank you for all that you've done over the years for Georgia kayak fishing, and we look forward to what the future holds for bringing great things for kayak fishing in the state of Georgia. With that, Freddie, anything else you want to add to?
Yeah, actually, I'd like to thank John for coming on again. It was a great conversation, and always enjoy talking to him about the the kayak community for the state of Georgia. He's got a lot of insight, done a lot of great things for the state of Georgia, and continues to do a lot of great things. So, again, I appreciate it, and from the bottom of my heart, John, I appreciate all that you've done and in helping guide the way for myself and Classic City as we got started here in the first couple of years. So thanks again for coming on the show, and look forward to having you on again soon.
Yeah. With that, guys, that brings in an end to this edition of the Hook and Reel Kayak Fishing Show. As always, thank you guys for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you guys again real soon.
Take care.